Welcome to our program on Kardec Radio.
Hello, dear friends, and welcome to our weekly program on the miracles as we learn and as they are described in Genesis by Allan Kardec. We've been studying for the last few weeks, focusing on chapter 13, which is entitled Characteristics of Miracles. And then we moved on to the Fluids, which is chapter 14 in the second half of Genesis. And today we're beginning a new chapter, and it is entitled Miracles in the Gospel. And we welcome you all very warmly to this program and to Kardec Radio, where we nourish our souls daily 24/7. You can look up the programs and listen to them on the website, Kardec Radio website. There's thousands of podcasts. It's live on YouTube. It is also live on Facebook. There is an app. So there's plenty of opportunity for us to nourish our souls. So today we are turning to page 315 in Genesis. Again, it's chapter 15. And the overall chapter is entitled Miracles in the Gospel. And the first subchapter we will be looking at today is called The Superiority of Jesus' Nature. How exciting! We would like to learn more about that. So let us share our screen so we can pull up our PowerPoint. Here we go. And then we'll just do a little technical quick check to see that this is actually happening. And it seems to be fine. So, dear friends, please feel free to interact and post your questions. I won't be able to see them right now, but I will periodically check on my phone, because then I can call up the program. So, item 1, the superiority of Jesus' nature. The phenomena reported in the Gospel, and which until now have been considered miraculous, belong in their majority to the order of psychic phenomena. That is, those that have the faculties and attributes of the soul as their primary cause. So the phenomena that we find that were reported or are reported in the Gospel, which were in the past considered miraculous, belong to the psychic phenomena, which means the primary cause for psychic phenomena is linked to our souls, or to the soul. So the primary cause behind psychic phenomena, which is the effect, is the soul. So this is really important, all right? Consequently, and we've studied in the last few months, those phenomena are not really miracles, right? We know that already. But now Allan Kardec is just rehearsing what psychic phenomena are linked to. They're linked to our soul. History has shown that similar phenomena have occurred in all times and among all cultures. So these are not only specific to the Gospel, but they have occurred throughout the history of mankind. It is true that one might contest the trustworthiness of history on this point. However, today the phenomena are being produced right before our eyes. And we might add, naturally and by individuals who have nothing exceptional about them. So psychic phenomena are very common. The very fact that a phenomenon can be reproduced under identical conditions is sufficient to prove that it is possible and that it is subject to a particular law. Thus, from that point on, it's no longer miraculous. So the point that Alan Kardec is making is that as long as a phenomena can be reproduced, it falls under certain laws. Anything that is not just a one-time event and cannot be explained could be labeled a miracle and has been labeled a miracle. But now what we're learning is that the psychic phenomena whose cause, who is the soul, are common and they can be reproduced under certain spiritual laws. Consequently, they're not miraculous. Okay, so where were we? So the principle of psychic phenomena rests upon the properties of the perispiritual fluid, which constitutes the magnetic agent. Upon the manifestations of the spirit life during incarnation after death, and finally upon the compositional state of spirits and their role as an active force. So now Allan Kardec helps us understand or defines psychic phenomena. So he says that psychic phenomena, which are common, and the cause for them lies within the soul. There's 3 different psychic reasons psychic phenomena are rooted in. Number 1, they rest upon properties of perispiritual fluid, which is the magnetic agent. We've learned before that the perispiritual envelope of the soul, which serves as the intermediary, as the link between our physical body and our soul, is pivotal. The role of this perispirit, which is fluidic, is pivotal in all psychic phenomena. So psychic phenomena rest, number 1, on the properties of the perispiritual fluid. Number 2, upon manifestation of the spirit life during incarnation and after death. And number 3, the psychic phenomena rest upon spirits as the active force of nature. So in other words, there's clear rules and regulations. There's laws behind psychic phenomena, which consequently makes them reproducible, which means they're not miracles, right? And the perispiritual fluid is key in those psychic phenomena. Once these elements are known and their effects proven, one must consequently accept the possibility of certain phenomena that were rejected as long as they were attributed to supernatural origin. Makes sense, right? All right, so let's go back. What we learned is that the phenomena that we read about in the gospel, and which were called miracles, are really psychic phenomena. The primary cause for psychic phenomena is the soul. If psychic phenomena can be reproduced, they are not miracles. Psychic phenomena rest on 3 different causes. One is the perispiritual fluid. The next one is the manifestation of spirits, both during incarnation and after death, and that spirits are an active force of nature. Consequently, they fall under the natural law of God. And the minute a phenomena rests in the law, it's not a miracle anymore. All right, let us move on to item 2. Still under the title, The Superiority of Jesus' Nature. Without any preconceptions as to the nature of Christ, he was a highly evolved spirit. We must recognize him as one of the highest order, and due to his virtues, he is placed far above earthly humanity. So Christ was a spirit of the highest order. We kind of knew that, right? Because of the immense results that he produced, his incarnation on this world could only have been one of those missions that are entrusted to the direct messengers of the divinity in order to fulfill its designs. So Christ, as a highest order spirit, was a messenger from God to transmit God's word on planet Earth. Even supposing that Christ was not God per se, but a messenger from God, sent to transmit God's words, he would be more than a prophet, for he would be a divine Messiah. So Allan Kardec is really explaining to us. He's setting the stage for us to understand the miracles that are to follow by explaining Jesus' nature. So he defined him as the highest order spirit, a messenger from God, a divine Messiah. As a man, Jesus had the bodily composition of corporeal beings. But as a pure spirit detached from matter, he would have lived the spirit life more than the corporeal life. So this is interesting, right? As a pure spirit detached from matter, he would have lived the life he would have lived the spirit life more than the corporeal life. So his ties were loose to his body. The superiority of Jesus over other humans was not linked to the particularities of his body, but to those of his spirit, which dominated matter completely, and that of his perispirit, which was drawn from the most quintessential portion of Earth's fluid. Let us pause. Let us take this sentence apart. So first, Allan Kardec is showing us that Jesus' superiority was not linked to his physical body. So he wasn't Superman. He couldn't fly around. He wasn't very muscular. There was nothing so special about his body, right? But his superiority instead was linked to his spirit. And then he further goes on, he says that his spirit dominated matter completely. And his perispirit was drawn from the most quintessential portion of Earth's fluid. Now, what does quintessential mean? The quintessential portion of Earth's fluids. So we know that the universal cosmic fluid is at the root of all manifestation of everything, every formation, every body, anything that's visible and not visible is made out of a form of the universal cosmic fluid. And so is Earth's fluid. But Earth's fluid, which we learned many weeks ago, is more impure as the fluids are closer to planet Earth, and they are more pure when they are further away, reaching more towards the higher realms. So quintessential means it's representing the most perfect or the most typical example of something, and in this case of Earth's fluid. So it is representing the most perfect form of Earth's fluid. I mean, we're realizing that words can't really describe what we're trying to transmit, but we're hoping it comes across, right? So it was the finest part of Earth's fluid, the most pure part was the base, was what Jesus's perispirit was made out of. So for this, as a reminder, let us go back for a moment to chapter 14, item 9. Chapter 14 and item 9. And this was in the chapter of the fluids, right? So let us go back real quickly so we can solidify this information. The nature of the fluidic envelope, namely the perispirit, always has to do with the spirit's degree of moral advancement, right? We talked about Jesus's perispiritual composition. Less evolved spirits cannot change envelopes at will. However, highly evolved spirits can go to lower worlds and can even incarnate on them. They draw from the compositional elements of the world, namely the earth's fluids. They enter the materials to form. They draw from the compositional elements of the world. They enter the materials to form the fluidic or corporeal envelope that is appropriate to them, to the environment. So in other words, high-level spirits have the capacity to go at will wherever they want to. They can go to lower worlds like Earth. Then they draw their perispiritual envelope from the fluids of wherever they're going. In this case, Jesus came to Earth. So that was not his own perispirit. He used it. He used the compositional elements of the fluids of Earth, but the purest elements of that. This is how spirits of the highest order can manifest themselves to Earth's inhabitants or incarnate on a mission amongst them. This is really important. Such spirits, like Jesus, do not bring their envelope with them, but rather their remembrance through intuition of the regions whence they came from, and which they see by means of thought. They are seers amongst the blind. So spirits like Jesus did not bring their perispirit with them. They drew them from, Jesus did, from the purest element of Earth's fluids. All right, so let's go back to the text. So Jesus' soul must not have been connected to his body, except by strictly indispensable ties. And since it was constantly detached, his spirit, it must have given him a second side that was not only continuous, but exceptionally penetrating and far superior to anything seen among ordinary human beings. So here's Jesus, a highly superior spirit, a messenger from God, a divine Messiah. He comes to earth, and due to the superiority of his spirit, his body and his spirit are very tenuously linked. His soul completely dominated the matter. His perispirit was drawn from the most quintessential portion of Earth's fluids. And Jesus, according to Allan Kardec, probably had continuous second sight due to his soul that might have been constantly detached from his body. So in our case, in your case, what happens is we're so densely connected to our physical form that we lose all perspective, right? Because our soul isn't advanced enough to have this state of lucidity, this state where the soul is only very loosely connected to the physical form, which allowed Jesus, these were indispensable ties, as Allan Kardec says, which allowed Jesus to have almost continuous second sight because he wasn't so connected with dense matter, right? His soul commanded matter completely. It's something to look forward to, right? Something we're aspiring towards. Such must have also been the case regarding all the phenomena that depend on the perispiritual or psychic fluids. The quality of these fluids endowed him with an immense magnetic power, seconded by his incessant desire to do good. So his capacity to have this almost continuous second sight or psychic sight was partly due to the loose connection between his body and the soul, but also due to the quality of his perispiritual fluids. And lastly, his desire to want to do good. Consequently, he displayed immense magnetic powers. Moreover, what other spirit would have dared? Oh, wait. We jumped. Okay, second side. Did he act as a medium in the healing? healings he performed? Did Jesus act as a medium in the healings he performed? Alan Kardec is asking. Could Jesus be considered as a powerful healing medium? Those are two really important questions, right? Did Jesus act as a medium in the healings he performed that we read about in the Gospels? Or could he be considered a powerful healing medium? Well, here's the answer. No, because a medium is an intermediary, an instrument that discarnate spirits use, right? When we go back and remember the role of a medium in psychic phenomena, may they be psychic phenomena, or maybe they're materialistic, like a material phenomena where tables are moving or levitating or knocks and raps, right? Mediums are adding their fluids to these phenomena. So the spirits are acting through them. They're making use of mediums. But in Jesus's case, it's different. He says, no, because a medium is an intermediary. Christ, however, had no need of assistance. He was the one who assisted others. So from that sense, he wasn't a medium, because the spirits didn't make use of him. He was the one who didn't need help from the spirits, right? Therefore, he acted by himself in virtue of his own personal power, just as incarnates can do in certain cases and according to the measure of their abilities. So we have limited capacities in that regard too, but of course, way not like Jesus, right? So Jesus did not act as a medium because mediums are intermediary, and Christ didn't need that assistance from the spirits. He was the one who assisted others. He acted by himself in virtue of his own personal power. But Alan Kardec adds one more item, and he says, if he did receive an outside influx, it could only have been from God. So if Jesus received an outside influence, it could have only been from God, not from other spirits, but from God. According to the definition given by one spirit, Christ was God's medium. Beautiful, isn't it? So let us see whether anyone has any questions. Let me look, because I am feeling disconnected since I can't see you guys. So let me quickly look whether we're finding any. There's Tony. Hi, dear friend. Thank you for joining. And Nora Brazil. Thank you, dear friend, for being here. Teresa Castro. Thank you so much, dear friend. Denida Moore. Thank you for joining. And there's some more friends, so feel free to say hello. No questions. Good. So then let us move on. Let us move on to item 3. And now this is about dreams. So of course, I want to just stress that everything we're studying here helps us to understand the miracles. And in a minute, we will be touching on one, so to speak. But it's all really vital information. But we will be referring back and forth, so no need to retain it all, because we'll be, as we go forward, we will solidify the information by referring back. So dreams. So this is an interesting subject as well, right? The gospel states that Joseph was warned by an angel who appeared to him in a dream and told him to flee to Egypt with the child. So we read that in Matthew verse 2, 19 to 23. So let's look at that. Warnings through dreams play a major role in the sacred writings of all religions, because Joseph received a warning, right, in his dreams. Without guaranteeing the preciseness of all the facts recorded, and without discussing them, the phenomenon itself has nothing abnormal about it. If one knows that the time of sleep is when the spirit disengages itself from the bonds of matter and momentarily re-enters the spirit life, where it finds itself amongst those whom it used to know. So, Joseph received a dream with a warning, right? So this warning through dreams is nothing abnormal. I'm sure even you and I have experienced a dream like that, right? He reminds us, Alan Kardec reminds us that sleep is the time when our spirits disengage themselves from our physical bodies and re-enter the spirit life. And there we meet old friends, both incarnate and discarnate. We have certain experiences. We might be of service, hopefully, and we may go to schools to learn new skills, right? All kinds of different things. But it is the emancipation of our spirit, finally for a few hours, to be freer and experience things, right? So it is often at such times that protector spirits during sleep, that protector spirits choose to manifest themselves to their wards and give them more direct counsel. So it is during sleep time when protector spirits appear to us, our mentors, healing doctors, and other mentors and guiding spirits and angels, right? And they want to give us counsel. The authenticated examples of warnings through dreams are numerous, but one must not infer from this that all dreams are warnings, and even less that everything seen in a dream has some special meaning. And this is interesting because there's whole books written on the interpretation of dreams, but Alan Kardec has a strong opinion on that. He adds, the art of interpreting dreams should be ranked amongst the superstitious and absurd beliefs. So that is what he is passing on to us, that the art of interpreting dreams should be ranked among the superstitious and absurd beliefs. But in the meantime, let us go to chapter 14 back. Let's look back to item 27 and 28, because it was there that we discussed dreams. And there is a little bit of 27, 28. There is a little bit of information for us there that we want to rehearse. So spirits, okay, let's see. Yeah, so here Alan Kardec was teaching us that spirit side is necessarily incomplete and imperfect in incarnate spirits in us. Makes sense because we're so densely connected to our physical bodies. Since its seat is in the soul, so that the seat of spirit side is in the soul, the state of the soul must influence the perceptions it provides. So these perceptions, so according to the degree of the soul's development, spirit side can provide either during sleep or during the waking state 3 different situations. Number 1, the perception of certain real physical events. That's what we can experience through dreams or through our sleep time. The perception of certain real physical events, such as knowledge of events that occur far away, details describing a locality, the causes of an illness, and appropriate remedies. So in other words, we can receive information. The next one that spirit side is based on is the perception of things equally real in the spirit world, such as being able to see spirits. So sometimes we can just see them. We can be in the waking state or in the sleeping state again. And lastly, fantastic images created by the imagination, analogous to the fluidic creations of thought. Such creations always go hand in hand with the moral disposition of the spirit that creates them. So some of them simply are, according to him, hallucinations, fantastic images that have very little to do with reality. So then in item 28, when he talks about dreams, then he says, dreams per se display the 3 types of visions that we just discussed. The ones that are real visions, real perceptions, the ones where spirits appear to us, and lastly, just hallucinations, fantastic images. So dreams display these three types of visions. The first two belong to prophetic dreams, namely the ones when we have real events happening and when spirits appear to us. But the last one, and those were our presentiments and warnings we receive. And in the third one, the last one, that is in the fluidic creations of thoughts, that one can find the cause of certain fantastic images that have nothing to do with reality. So such creations can be provoked by eccentric beliefs, retrospective memories, and the likes. So in other words, what Alan Kardec, what we're reading in the gospel about dreams in Matthew, that Joseph received this warning, is entirely possible, because it falls under the three notions of psychic vision that are linked also to dreams, and it doesn't fall into the category of fantastic images, illusions, right? Okay. Let's see, any questions? There is Guilherme Barris. Hello, dear friend. Thank you for joining. And Michael Feliz. Okay. So now let us move on to number 4. Item number 4, we will find ourselves on page 318. For those of you who have just joined, we are studying Genesis, and we are in the second part. The title of the chapter is Miracles in the Gospel, and the subtitle is The Star of the Magi. Item 4. It is said that a star appeared to the Magi, who came to worship Jesus, that it had gone before them, pointing the way, and that it stopped when they arrived. We all know about this story, right? That the three Magi, the three wise men, the three kings that brought gold, frankincense, and myrrh to the little baby Jesus, they followed a star that led them to Jesus in the cradle. So now let us see what was the star of the Magi. Since there is no means of verification, the issue does not involve knowing whether the event narrated by Matthew is real, or if it is only an image indicating that the Magi were guided in a mysterious way to the place where the child was. So in other words, Alan Kardec, who is very matter-of-factly and scientific, says that there is just simply no means of verification. And finding out how they were guided to baby Jesus. He then continues to say, what is certain is that in this instance, the light could not have been a star. Boy, are we glad we're sitting down, right? So no, he says, most likely it was not a star. Now let us see why. Such could have been believed at the time because it was thought that the stars were luminous points attached to the firmament, and that they could fall to earth. But nowadays we know their true nature. So he says it could have been that explanation at the time when Jesus was born, because the picture, the world picture, was very different. Stars were believed to be hanging off in the firmament, and that they were luminous points, and that they could fall to the earth. Interesting, right? So while there is no means of verifying that it was a star that guided the three kings to baby Jesus, it clearly could have not been a star, even though based on their beliefs at the time, it could have been. But Alan Kardec continues. He says now, even though the event did not have the cause attributed to it, remember, law of cause and effect, the effect was the so-called star, but in this event did not have the cause attributed to it, the occurrence of the apparition of light that looked like a star is nonetheless something possible. So it could have been an apparition of a spirit, of an illuminated spirit. A spirit can appear in a luminous form, or it can transform part of its perispiritual fluid into a luminous point. So a spirit could have been luminous, meaning the perispiritual fluid could have emanated so much light, or maybe part of the perispiritual fluid, that it appeared like a star, like a ball of light, so to speak. Many recent and perfectly authenticated occurrences of this kind have no other cause, and such cause is nothing supernatural about it. So according to Allan Kardec, it could not have been a star, but even though there's no real clarity as to the verification that this was really the case, that they were following a starlight like light, he is postulating that it could have been an apparition of a spirit light, of a perispiritual, illuminated perispirit. We know that perispirits, the more highly evolved we become, the more luminous our perispirit becomes. Or it could have been a portion of a perispirit that would have manifested itself to the three magi. And then he adds that if that was the case, if it was an apparition or a partial apparition, then there would be nothing supernatural about it. So it would have not been a miracle. Now let us go back to chapter 14 again, and this time we're going to item 13. Chapter 14, item 13. Hold on. Yes. So it is again about the spiritual fluids, and that spirits draw their perispirit from the universal cosmic fluid, that spirits act upon the spiritual fluids, but they do not manipulate them like humans manipulate gases. Remember, that is when spirits manipulate the universal cosmic fluid, the fluids, through their will, through thought and will, or for spirits what hands are to humans. So by means of thought, spirits impress upon fluids this or that direction. So a spirit could have willed to show up illuminated, or parts of its perispirit illuminated. He says, for example, this is how a spirit makes itself visible to an incarnate endowed with psychic sight. So it could have been that these three magi had psychic sight. So by willing, a spirit willing to show itself via its perispirit, in form of light in this case, is how spirits show themselves. Here we also knew then, okay, so this is how a spirit makes itself visible to an incarnate endowed with psychic sight, appearing in the same form it had while alive at the time. But in this case, it would be light. This does not mean that it has retained such an appearance. But going back in thought, it would show up like this. Since the fluids are the vehicle of thought, thought acts upon the fluids as sound acts upon the air. So this clearly explains the mechanism behind why it is a likely cause, right? The likely cause behind this so-called star that led the Magi to baby Jesus was an apparition, a spirit apparition, a spirit wanting to appear to these three Magi's in form of light, because spirits, through their will and thought, can manipulate their perispirit. If you discarnate and you want to show yourself to your child, let's say, then you could, via your thought and your will, command the perispiritual fluids to look like how you looked like in the incarnation when you had that child. So that is the description, the scientific, spiritual scientific description behind apparitions, which we studied a few weeks ago. And you can go back on Kardec Radio and revisit that section. So, dear friends, next week we will continue our study. We will be going to Second Sight, and we will be studying the entry of Jesus into Jerusalem, Judas's kiss, and also the miraculous fishing. We might even go so far as to look at the calling of Peter, Andrew, James, John, and Matthew. So this will be, we're now diving deeply into examples that Allan Kardec drew from the gospel. And we will be looking at those so-called miraculous descriptions, events, and see what is actually behind them. It's a very exciting study. And let me stop sharing and say hello to everyone. Make sure that there aren't any more questions. Hello, friends. Let me see here, comments. Yes, hello, Mark, and hello, Narciso. Thank you so much for joining. So if you come across any questions, if you have any questions in your mind, please feel free to post them even in, after this program is over. And let us thank God and the good spirits, and of course, Jesus, and this beautiful, beautiful guiding model that we were all gifted with on planet Earth, the emissary of God, to have. And also thank you to Allan Kardec for compiling this vital information to us that helps us to understand the gospel better and to connect to the gospels in a even more educated and open-minded, open-hearted, understanding way than before. And we thank Kardec Radio for this opportunity to join this international classroom where we nourish our souls always. Dear friends, thank you for joining, and God bless you.